Today we're going to be working on another shadow box, and what I'm doing here is that I'm blending together three colors. Green Moss by Waverly, Imperial Red by Folkart, and Parisian Gray also by Folkart. So what I'm doing is that I'm dabbing the three colors together and I'm blending them inside my shadow box, making sure that I'm happy with the blend. I don't want too much red in there, so I am mostly doing green with a little bit of gray and a little bit of the red. I'll be doing this to the inside of my box only. I'm applying it to the middle, and I will then be applying it to the inside sides of the shadow box. That's what it looks like right now. I am now going to take the outside of my box and I'm going to be applying Waverly's Antique Wax all around the box. I dry it really well, and then I take a candle wax and I apply that as well all around. Once that's done, I take Folkart Farmhouse White and I apply it all around the box. I dry it and then I take my scraper and I scrape all around the box. And then I take my gator sander and I sand all four sides on the outside of my shadow box, just smoothing out that chippy look. Once that's done, I will go ahead and clean my surface because it's a hot mess from the scraping and the sanding. I now take my box and I'm going to be using two stencils. One stencil is a leafy stencil. The other stencil is a small brick stencil, and the first one on there is the small brick stencil. And today I will be using chalk paste by Redesign with Prima in the color Antique Lace. So what I take is I take a little piece of a credit card that I cut up and I start smoothing my chalk paste over my stencil. I gently go ahead and spread it, evenly spread it wherever I want the stencil to show up. I then take the stencil and move it over to the other side and do another even layer, spreading it evenly. I don't press hard, just gently spread it over. And then I go to the bottom corner and I do the same thing. Okay, once I'm happy with that, I take the other stencil. I take the other stencil and once that's nice and dry, I take the other stencil and I put it on top and I start spreading my chalk paste that I colored with Folkart Imperial Red and not Parisian Gray, and Rich Black, also by Folkart. So I spread my chalk paste evenly wherever I want the stencil to show, making sure that I cover everything that I want to cover. Nice even strokes. I don't press hard. You don't want this to smear on you from the bottom. So I just take my time with this. That's what it's looking like so far. I love it. I think it looks really cute. Okay, so now we're going to take our box, set it aside, and that has to dry really well. So now I have my 2 spindles here, and what I'm going to do is that I'm going to take that Waverly antique wax, and I'm going to take a wet wipey, and I'm going to go ahead and start applying the antique wax to both of my spindles. I'm making sure that I cover every surface of the spindles. Once that's done, I give it a quick dry to make sure it's nice and dry. And then I'm going to take a dry paper towel and make sure that there's no like globs of wax on there. The next step is that I'm going to take my wax and do the same thing and cover both spindles with my wax. Next, I take my Farmhouse White by Folkart, and I cover both spindles with that paint. When that's done, I go ahead and dry them really well, and then I take my scraper and I start scraping my spindles, giving them a chippy look. And I just make sure I get into all the crevices of the spindles, and giving it a really good chippy look. And I am going to do that to both spindles. After that's done, I take my sander and I start sanding my spindles to smooth out that chippy look. It just makes it look more authentic when it's blended together. I take my little handy dandy vacuum, I clean my surface. That's what the box is looking like so far. So this part I have to explain. I took a cardboard, cut it to the size of the box. I took every side 1.5 inch in, and then I went ahead and I cut the middle out. Okay, I did that with my pinking shears. And once that was done, I took a print that I found on Pinterest, and I went ahead and decoupaged it onto the outside of that cardboard box. This is going to go on top of my shadow box. That's just going to add another layer of dimension to the box. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to take Dixie Belle's Bextan wax, and I'm going to go ahead and go over my bricks just to give them a distressed look. And I'm going to be tapping that really well. I just want to dry brush this over the bricks. Give them a light brush just to make them stand out a little bit and give them an old look. So I'm just going over all the bricks. I'm not pressing hard. I'm doing this lightly, just dry brushing them. This will make them stand out a little bit also. And I do that to all the bricks that I stenciled on there. I also take the wax brush and I just go over the whole thing lightly, just to give it a distressed look. I now take this the stamp. It's a script writing stamp, and I press it against my black ink, and I gently apply it to a corner of my shadow box. I just press lightly. I don't move that stamp because it'll smear. Just gently press it, and then there we go. There's the first one. I then do the same thing and I apply it to the bottom corner of my shadow box. Tap it gently, and there we go. We're now going to attach our cardboard frame to the outside of the shadow box. I'm just making sure that it's good, and then I take my hot glue gun and I'm going to be applying a layer of hot glue all around the shadow box, and then I'll be attaching that cardboard on there, making sure it's nice and even all around the box. And so far, that's what we have. I am loving it. I think it's so pretty. The next thing that I'm going to be doing is that I am now going to go ahead and attach my spindles to either side of my shadow box. So I just make sure that they're even, and I take my hot glue gun and I dab some hot glue on the raised parts of the spindle. And I'm sorry I'm out of frame. Sometimes I just forget I'm on the camera. I just do my own thing. So then I go ahead and put that spindle on there, make sure I like it, and I take the other spindle and I do the same thing. I apply the hot glue on there and I just hit the raised parts of it and go ahead and attach it. I will now show you what's going to go inside of this box. I found this beautiful ballerina on Pinterest, and I'm going to be attaching a Jenga block to the back of her because I want her to go in there and have a 3D effect. So I apply hot glue to the back of the Jenga block and I attach that to the back of the ballerina. That's what the box is looking like so far. I love it. I think it's beautiful. And then I take, this part is a hot mess. I take the Distress ink from Tim Holtz and I try to outline my ballerina with using this pad, this ink pad, but it's just really difficult to do. I still try. I can't even get to her face. I try the other side and I finally give up, abandon ship, and I just go ahead and try to find my wax brush, which is right where I always put it, right in front of me, but I'm gonna look all over the world. I finally find it and I then go ahead and have a much easier time giving my ballerina a light outline. There was a little smudge on her arm from the pad, but I didn't want to mess with it. I didn't want to make it worse, so I just left it alone. But I go ahead now and I just give her a light outline. And I can now go ahead and put her inside. Oh, actually, no. What I do now is that I go ahead and I do take my Best Damn Wax from Dixie Belle and I go ahead and rub it all over my spindles. I brush it, not rub it. I brush it all over the spindles. Also giving them a more distressed look, making this whole piece look antique and distressed. Once that's done, then I am ready to go ahead and put this beautiful ballerina inside my box. So I just put her in there one more time to make sure. And then I take my hot glue gun, I put some hot glue on the Jenga block, and I carefully place her just where I want her to be. Oh, she looks beautiful in there. Now, I have these two molds. I did try to make clay molds, but clay was not being my friend today, so I abandoned that plan, and I went ahead and I made two resin molds. So what I'm doing now is that I'm just applying the antique wax by Waverly all over those molds. Once that's done, I take a wipey and I start wiping off the excess wax from my molds. And that just, it gives it a really pretty antique look. All that wax gets inside all the nooks and crannies of the mold. I'm just making sure. And once that's done, I can bring back my box. And I'll be attaching these two molds to the top and the bottom of my shadow box. And what I'm doing there is I'm cleaning the back because wax and hot glue just don't get along. So I always clean the back of my molds if there's any wax on there. So what I do is I take Tight Bond wood glue, all-purpose wood glue, and I apply it to the back of my one mold. I take a brush and I spread it evenly on there, making sure that the whole thing is covered with the glue. I take my hot glue gun, give it a little dab in the middle, just to hold it in place while the Tight Bond dries. And I put it on my box. Make sure it's centered. Give it a few seconds so that it just does its thing. And then I do the same thing to the top mold. I put my Tight Bond on there. I spread it with my brush. Make sure it's evenly spread and that every surface is covered. I take my hot glue gun. I give it a little dab there in the middle. And I go ahead and attach it to the top of my shadow box. Some people might say that this is upside down, but I like it this way. I like the way it looked. I did give it some thought, but I like it this way. And once I'm happy, everything is in its place, we're done. This is our ballerina in our shadow box, 3D ballerina. She is absolutely beautiful. I love it.